Small, consistent actions aligned with a new story create massive long-term change because transformation is never about one dramatic moment. It's about the tiny choices you repeat until they become the fabric of your identity. Most people imagine change as a sudden breakthrough, a single burst of motivation, or an overnight shift, but real growth is built through steady, deliberate steps taken in the direction of who you want to become. Even the smallest action, when repeated consistently, rewires your beliefs, strengthens your confidence, and reinforces the new story you're choosing to live. When you act differently, even in small ways, your brain begins to accept a new identity because behavior is one of the strongest signals of who you believe you are. If you take one step toward your goals every day, no matter how minor, your mind slowly stops identifying with the version of you that stayed stuck and starts identifying with the version that takes responsibility, moves forward, and refuses to settle. These little actions create momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human change. Once you start moving, even gently, your energy rises, your clarity sharpens, and you begin craving more progress. The new story stops being something you say and becomes something you do. The challenge is that small actions often seem insignificant in the moment. Missing a day doesn't feel like a big deal, doing 5 minutes of effort seems almost pointless, and tiny habits appear too small to matter. But compounded over weeks, months, and years, these micro actions separate the people who transform from those who stay trapped in their old patterns. Consistency creates trust within yourself. Each repeated action becomes evidence that you are committed, capable, and becoming someone new. The more evidence you stack, the stronger your belief becomes, and belief fuels even greater action. This cycle gradually turns effort into habit, and habit into identity. Aligning your actions with your new story also eliminates the internal conflict that drains so many people. When you say you want change but act like your old self, you feel stuck, frustrated, and disconnected. But when your actions match your intentions, even in the smallest ways, you feel congruent and empowered. You're no longer wishing for change, you're building it. Over time, those seemingly small behaviors, choosing healthier foods, reading 10 minutes a day, practicing gratitude, making one bold decision, saying no to old patterns, accumulate into a transformation that feels massive. People will look at your life and assume something big happened, but you'll know it was the quiet, consistent, intentional steps that reshaped everything. Your mind functions as a gateway that determines the quality of your life. Because everything you experience, everything you believe, and everything you pursue is filtered through the thoughts you allow to enter. When you begin to understand that your mind is not just a space where thoughts randomly appear, but a doorway you have the power to guard, your entire perspective shifts. Most people move through life without noticing how much influence they give to the world around them. Conversations, social media, news, opinions, criticism, and past experiences all walk in freely, shaping emotions, decisions, and identities. But the truth is that you decide what gets to stay and what gets to pass through. Every empowering belief, every destructive doubt, every spark of motivation, and every whisper of fear is granted permission by you, whether consciously or unconsciously. When you allow uplifting, growth-oriented thoughts to enter, you create inner conditions that support courage, clarity, and forward momentum. Your energy rises, your self-belief strengthens, and your vision expands because the mental environment you've allowed is aligned with growth. But when you let toxic ideas, discouraging voices, and limiting beliefs slip in without resistance, they begin to color how you see yourself in the world. They influence your emotions, shape your expectations, and alter the choices you make. Over time, a single negative influence can multiply, slowly taking control of your mindset and steering your life in a direction you never intended. Standing guard means becoming aware, becoming intentional, and refusing to let just anything enter your mental space. It means recognizing that not every thought deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves a reaction, and not every memory deserves to be replayed. You begin to choose what aligns with your values, your growth, and your future. You filter out what drains your energy and invite in what fuels your purpose. You stop being a passive observer of your inner world and become the protector of it. This mindset transforms how you respond to challenges, setbacks, and the noise of daily life. Instead of being pulled by every emotional shift or external voice, you build a mental foundation that keeps you steady, focused, and grounded. You start to notice how the quality of your thoughts determines the quality of your actions, and how the quality of your actions shapes the direction of your life. This awareness gives you the power to create your inner environment rather than simply living in one created by chance, habit, or outside influences. When you realize that you are the gatekeeper of your mind, you understand that your life begins to change the moment you take responsibility for what you allow to enter and what you refuse to let inside. And from that point forward, you begin to craft a life built on intention, clarity, and inner strength that grows each time you choose to guard the doorway of your mind and maintain control over the thoughts that shape your reality and quietly determine the direction you are heading toward next. Most people go through life guarding the things they can see, locking their doors at night, protecting their money, securing their valuables, defending their reputation. Yet the one thing that shapes every thought, emotion, decision, and outcome is left completely unprotected: their mind. It's surprising how much effort people invest in shielding external possessions while allowing negativity, fear, and limiting beliefs to enter their inner world without resistance. The mind is the command center of everything we do, yet it receives the least protection and the least awareness. You can have the most secure home, the strongest locks, the safest surroundings, but if you leave your mind open to destructive influences, you invite chaos into the very place where your identity, confidence, peace, and future are formed. The world constantly sends messages, some uplifting, many discouraging, and without conscious guarding, you absorb them automatically. A single negative comment, a fearful headline, a toxic relationship, or a past memory can slip into your mental space and begin shaping how you feel, what you expect, and the choices you make. People don't realize how easily their minds can be conditioned by repetition, by environment, and by emotional states that they never stop to filter. When you fail to guard your mind, you start reacting instead of choosing. You start accepting beliefs that weren't yours to begin with, carrying fears that never belonged to you, and living under limitations planted by others. Protecting your physical environment while leaving your mental environment unguarded is like sealing your windows but inviting a storm through the front door. Your inner world needs intentional protection because everything begins there. Your confidence, patience, creativity, resilience, and ability to grow. When you become mindful of what you allow in, you begin to notice how certain conversations leave you drained, how certain content triggers doubt, how certain people ignite insecurity, and how certain routines nurture clarity and strength. This awareness helps you set stronger boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. You start choosing what you watch, what you read, what you repeat in your head, and what you emotionally engage with. You recognize that mental protection isn't about avoiding the world, but about choosing how the world affects you. It's about using your attention wisely, filtering thoughts intentionally, and refusing to allow mental clutter to become mental truth. When you commit to guarding your mind the same way you guard the things you value, you reclaim control over your inner narrative. You move more powerfully through challenges, and you begin to live from a place of strength rather than reaction, shaping your life through conscious choice rather than unconscious influence. Every thought you entertain creates an emotional response. And every emotional response generates momentum that carries you into action. Most people underestimate the power of this process, thinking that thoughts are harmless or fleeting, but in reality, the ideas you allow to take root in your mind become the blueprint for your life. When your mind is filled with fear, doubt, and worry, those emotions generate a kind of energy that influences your decisions, your confidence, and your interactions with the world. Conversely, when you nurture thoughts of possibility, strength, and resilience, the emotions that follow propel you forward with clarity, courage, and determination. Emotional momentum is subtle at first, like a small stream, but over time it gathers force, shaping habits, choices, and ultimately your destiny. Each day, the repetitive thoughts you dwell on either strengthen your inner foundation or weaken it. If you repeatedly entertain self-doubt, you will unconsciously make decisions that reinforce limitation. If you allow negativity to dominate, you will unconsciously avoid opportunities, shrink from challenges, and settle for less than your potential. The connection between thought and emotion is immediate. A single belief can shift your mood, change your perspective, and influence your behavior. Over weeks and months, this repeated cycle becomes habitual, forming patterns of thought and feeling that become difficult to break. That is why guarding the doorway to your mind is so critical. By choosing which thoughts to entertain and which emotions to feed, you consciously influence the momentum of your life. When you consistently focus on empowering constructive thoughts, you create emotional energy that supports persistence, focus, and creativity. Your actions begin to align with your vision, and the small daily choices you make compound over time into extraordinary results. Conversely, when you allow destructive thoughts to dominate, you give rise to emotions that sabotage progress, create doubt, and weaken your sense of self. Awareness of this process is the first step toward mastery, because once you see how thought leads to emotion, emotion leads to action, and action leads to destiny, you begin to take control of each stage. You realize that your external circumstances may not always be in your control, but your internal state is yours to manage. By consciously choosing your thoughts and cultivating empowering emotional responses, you generate momentum that carries you in the direction of your goals, builds resilience in the face of obstacles, and fosters confidence that grows with each success, reinforcing the cycle of growth and possibility, so that every step forward is deliberate, energized, and aligned with the life you envision for yourself. Your mind is a garden, and what you choose to plant, nurture, and protect determines the quality of your inner world and the life you create. Every day, you are surrounded by countless influences. People, media, environments, and experiences, all of which carry energy that can either uplift you or drain you. Without conscious selection, your mind becomes a passive recipient, absorbing ideas and beliefs that may not serve your highest good. The key to living intentionally is to actively choose the thoughts, beliefs, and influences you allow into your mental space. Empowering beliefs act as the foundation for confidence, resilience, and purpose, while disempowering ones create doubt, fear, and stagnation. You must evaluate not only what you think, but also what you consume, who you spend time with, and what kind of environments you inhabit, because each of these elements either strengthens or weakens your mental state. Surrounding yourself with positivity, inspiration, and challenge fuels growth and creativity, helping you maintain clarity and focus in the face of obstacles. Just as a gardener removes weeds to allow healthy plants to thrive, you must remove limiting beliefs, toxic influences, and repetitive negative thoughts that prevent your mind from operating at its highest potential. Developing the habit of consciously choosing your mental diet requires self-awareness and discipline, because the default tendency is to absorb whatever comes first or loudest. Yet, by deliberately seeking out uplifting ideas, encouraging relationships, and constructive feedback, you create a mental environment that nurtures courage, clarity, and energy. This conscious curation also extends to your daily routines, habits, and even the language you use with yourself. Positive reinforcement, affirmations, and visualization are tools that strengthen the mind and reinforce empowering beliefs. The process is ongoing. It is not a one-time decision, but a continuous practice of evaluating, adjusting, and protecting the quality of your mental input. As you practice this, you begin to notice the direct impact on your behavior, decisions, and resilience. Challenges become opportunities to apply your focus rather than reasons to retreat, and setbacks transform into lessons instead of sources of discouragement. By consciously choosing what enters your mind, you gradually align your inner world with your goals, values, and vision. This alignment strengthens your ability to respond rather than react, to act with intention rather than impulse, and to navigate life with clarity and strength. Because when your mental environment is deliberately curated, you create the conditions for growth, productivity, and the confidence to pursue your highest aspirations with consistency and purpose, ensuring that the energy, focus, and clarity you cultivate feed the life you are active. Building each day, developing mental discipline is not an optional skill or a luxury reserved for a select few. It is a daily commitment that determines the trajectory of your life, the quality of your decisions, and the depth of your inner peace. Just like physical strength requires consistent training, mental strength requires regular exercise, focus, and vigilance. Every thought you entertain, every belief you reinforce, and every influence you allow has the potential to either strengthen or weaken your mental resilience. Most people underestimate this power and assume that discipline only applies to external goals like fitness or finances, but the mind is the engine that drives all results. Without mental discipline, even the best intentions can be sabotaged by distraction, negative thinking, or impulsive reactions. It begins with awareness, the ability to recognize what is entering your mind, what patterns you are repeating, and how your thoughts shape your emotions and behavior. Once you develop this awareness, you can begin to implement intentional practices that strengthen your ability to focus, filter, and direct your mental energy. Mental discipline is built through small, consistent actions, refusing to dwell on negativity, consciously choosing empowering thoughts, setting boundaries around toxic influences, and practicing focus on your goals and values. Over time, these practices create habits that shape your character, sharpen your resilience, and expand your capacity to respond to challenges with clarity and composure. The process requires persistence because the mind naturally gravitates toward comfort, distraction, and old patterns. It is easy to slip into autopilot, allowing external circumstances to dictate how you feel, think, and act. But each time you exercise control over your mental environment, you strengthen your ability to stay centered and purposeful. Mental discipline also means cultivating patience and self-compassion, understanding that mastery is a gradual process and that lapses are opportunities to recommit rather than reasons for defeat. It requires the courage to confront uncomfortable truths, to challenge limiting beliefs, and to choose growth over convenience. As your mental discipline deepens, you begin to notice profound changes in every aspect of your life. Your relationships become healthier because you are more present and grounded. Your work becomes more productive because your focus is sharper, and your emotional state becomes more stable because you are less reactive to external turbulence. Ultimately, mental discipline is the bridge between your potential and your results, the internal framework that supports consistent action, purposeful living, and the ability to navigate life's inevitable challenges with confidence, resilience, and clarity, creating a foundation that allows you to harness your thoughts, focus your energy, and direct your life with intention, precision, and unwavering commitment to the outcomes you desire.